Hi, this is Ray from Honey Top Bees. I just got through recording this interview that you're going to watch today with Eli, who's a missionary in Uganda. And he talks about beekeeping in Uganda. I was blown away by how different beekeeping in Uganda is from beekeeping here in America. I want to encourage you, watch this entire video. There's so many interesting things. If you're a beekeeper in America, I think you're going to find this fascinating. The ways, the different methods, even we're going to even talk about how they sell brood as a delicacy to eat there in Uganda. You're going to enjoy this so much. There's so many interesting facts in there. Grab a cup of coffee, watch this entire interview. I think you're going to enjoy it as much as I do. All right, here's my first taste of Ugandan honey, and wait for bees to come and to move into them. This will be fun. All right, so I just want to introduce Eli to you. Eli is a missionary to Uganda. Why don't we start by telling us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My wife and I actually grew up in Africa. We met at a boarding school there, and then just love living in Africa. And so we have, since 2007, we've lived there in Sudan, South Sudan, and most recently in Uganda. We have 5 kids, and all boys. They all love growing up there. It's a boys' paradise.
Nice. Yeah,
growing up.
I bet.
And so I run an education program. It's really geared towards helping Christians know what they believe, and then also training pastors who are the teachers in the church, and so training them in how to teach the Bible and to disciple people. So that's my focus.
Nice, good. And this connects with bees how?
Yeah. Okay, so right now there's 1 million South Sudanese who have crossed over the border into Uganda as refugees. And they have fled the civil war that's there. And it's been an opportunity for us to be able to reach out with education. But they're also saying, hey, this education's great, but I have to feed my family. Like, I have some real needs. Is there something you can help me with? Just some job or vocation or things like that. And so we were, I've been trying to think, what can I integrate into our education program that could work for everyone? I just couldn't find a vocation that fit well until for the past couple of years I've been keeping bees. And I think we're onto something, because in northern Uganda, it is beekeeping country. And so we are integrating bees into our education program so that every student can learn how to keep bees, and so it's an income generation while at the same time studying the Bible and growing in their faith.
Excellent. And so Eli and I have talked a little bit. We're going to talk about some very interesting things today, so stay with us, because beekeeping in Uganda is very different than beekeeping here, and I think you're going to find a lot of this interesting. But we got to start with some of the stuff that you brought me today. So we've got some Ugandan honey. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to try it right now and see how I like it and compare. Now, have you had any South Carolina honey?
I have, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's got to be fair, this one.
Yeah.
All right, here's my first taste of Ugandan honey.
Any notes you got there? This is multifloral, by the way. So
Very different taste.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very different taste. I wish I had the vocabulary to describe it. It's different. It's strong.
Yep.
And I mean, it almost has like a more of a fermented taste. Like if I was, I don't know what the right word is. It's a very strong taste.
It is.
Yeah, it's not as gentle or as soft as the honey here. That in my experience, it feels like it's like a high proof honey or something like
concentrate.
that. I don't drink, but that's what I would assume that what I'd be talking about. All right. Now you brought me a couple of other things, and these are made out of propolis. So tell me a little bit about what's in these vials.
Sure. So our bees, they just naturally create a lot of propolis, and because of that, we've collected it and we're trying to find uses for it. And what we have found is that you can tincture propolis in alcohol. And so this is one of them, is a propolis tincture just It's 150 grain or proof alcohol. Soak your propolis for 2 weeks. You flip it up and down, get it nice and mixed every day for 2 weeks, and then I'll sift it off, and that's what you have. So that's pure. I wouldn't spray that down your throat, but it's good if you've got a cut or a
You
burn.
wouldn't spray it what?
Down your throat.
Oh, down my throat. This one.
It's
yeah.
a little
Okay.
strong.
And then this one.
But that one, so what we do is, because there is 150 proof alcohol in there, so we mix it 1-to-1 with honey, kind of cut it down a bit, still tastes very nice, and I've mixed it with Uganda honey, and this is Uganda propolis, and then I added just a couple drops of peppermint just for the spray.
Okay.
So what I'll do, can I show you?
Absolutely.
So what I'll do, I'll just take this. If I feel a cold coming on or a tickle, I'll just spray this down my throat, just like that. Let it sit for a second, and it takes away, just that cough that's starting to come at or anything like that. That's what it is.
So it's mostly propolis.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you how they harvest propolis in just a minute, but I got as you're talking about this, Eli, I can't help think of. Do you watch Barney Fife at all? Like Andy Griffith?
Before me.
Okay. Well, there's an episode on there where Aunt Bee buys some elixir from a medicine man on the street.
Okay.
And it's supposed to cure whatever ails you or whatever. And it was just like straight up alcohol. As you're talking about this, I'm like, I don't know if the propolis is doing it or if it's just the alcohol that's in it that's doing it. But anyway, I'm sure that there's some value to it. So anyway, tell me how do you harvest propolis in Uganda?
Sure. So most of the made hives are woven hives, and so you get sticks that are 3 feet long, and then you weave them into a circle, a cylinder, and then you would cover that in a mixture of mud, grass, and cow dung, and so that creates the shell. So now you have a kind of a hollow log. Now the ends of it are closed with whatever we can find, and so that's often a cut up piece of plastic or metal, but it doesn't fit very well on the two ends, and so the bees do a really good job of sealing all of that. So whenever you pull that cover off, you can scrape off that propolis they've put there.
So that hive, that woven hive, is that the primary kind of hive that people have, or is it a mixture between that and the top bar, or what? How does that work?
Right. So where I live, I'm in rural Uganda, just very rural. Not only that, and so we're talking people who are just trying to make their own hives. How they do it is by these woven hives, because all the material's local. You can just build them yourself. Now the hives that I use are top bar hives.
Okay.
And those, you need milled lumber.
Right.
You gotta cut a tree and mill it and get sides and nails and things like that. So that's what we're bringing as kind of, okay, this is kind of the next step.
Okay.
For beekeepers in that area.
So you have your hive, either your woven hive or top bar if they can afford it. Right. And then you go to like your local beekeeping club and you buy a nuke of bees, right? And that's how it works in Uganda.
You would be a very poor person if your job was to sell nukes.
Okay.
And the reason is, it's hard to explain to beekeepers here, but I will take an empty top bar hive, which is just, they look like coffins, almost. But I will take that, and I will take lemongrass, because lemongrass grows in our area, and you just grab a bundle of it and you rub it all inside the hive, and then I will set that out in where I want that hive to be colonized. And 3 days, sometimes a week, I will have a colony come to that hive.
So you don't buy bees?
Never.
People don't buy bees?
Never.
They never buy bees from one person to another.
I have never
seen that. That's hilarious.
I've never heard of it.
That's really hilarious. So you literally just set out your hive and wait for bees to come and to move into that hive.
Yes.
And within a week or so, that usually happens.
That usually happens.
I wish it was that easy here, especially for new beekeepers, because I teach new beekeepers classes. Yeah. If they could just set out a hive. Of course, bees are not native. The bees that we have are European bees, and so they're not native to this area. But I wish there was enough where beekeepers didn't have to buy bees, because bees are expensive.
They are.
Like here in America, $150 to $200. Sometimes I see them as high as $250 for a nuke. It's a lot of money. If you buy 2 or 3 hives, like you've made a major investment. Yeah. And so it's very interesting.
Yep.
So a couple of other things that I want to make sure we talk about, and the next one I want to talk about is I want to talk about your smokers you use.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were telling me a little bit about how beekeepers in Uganda will smoke their bees. Explain to the audience how they do that.
People have these woven hives, but they will destroy the hive every time they harvest honey. And so...
Now, by destroy the hive, you mean they will kill the bees?
Yeah.
Or just take all the comb out? What do you mean by that?
Well, in that process of going in and removing the comb out of this, they have to reach their hand into it. It's not something you can open. So they have to pull off the ends, and they reach through and they pull everything out. So it's like you harvest once a year and you pull everything out of that woven structure. And so in that process, you've now destroyed the colony. But because bees are so prolific, it's not like you have to go buy more. You'll find that bees come right back to that colony and start building new comb very, very quickly.
Interesting.
So
just a little point of clarification for me. They take all the comb out, not just the honey. They have to take the brood out, because probably the brood is in the front anyway. So they have to take all of that out, and a lot of the bees are probably going to be killed in that process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they're using live fire.
Live fire.
So we don't have smokers. Again, you got to consider that we are in very, very rural location, and so getting a smoker is very difficult for people. So using burning live fire grass, and they'll blow that into the hive, and oftentimes you get embers that go in there. You get a lot of smoke in there. So actually, a lot of our honey has a smoke taste to it, because you're using hot smoke when you're harvesting. And then also, brood is actually a delicacy. And so people will harvest brood, and then people enjoy. It's a man's treat. Okay. That the men will sit around and they enjoy that popping of the brood as they eat it. Hey, local taste. So it really is a delicacy. So when I talk about...
time out. Have you tried it?
Yeah.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
No, it's just... it's watery, I'll give you that.
So people eat the brood.
Yes.
Yeah.
You eat the brood.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing that.
No, I mean, you got to think about, like, here, eating your brood is anathema. You just can't do that.
Right.
But there, so anyway, that's just...
So they harvest the brood and the honey.
Yeah.
So they basically clean the whole hive out.
Yeah.
Anybody that's left is welcome to move back in. If you choose to not, then somebody else is moving back in.
Somebody else moves in. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Yeah. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
And what about harvesting the honey? How is that done?
Yeah. So once you've removed your comb from either these woven homes, or when we harvest from our top bar hives, you remove the comb with the honey in it, and then it's a crush and strain, and we can literally crush it by hand, because we don't have presses or anything like that. Okay. So you just squeeze it by hand, and that's how you get out your honey.
And how much from like one of those? How long when they make the woven hives?
Yeah.
Did you say they were about? Did you mention about
3
feet? About 3 feet long.
Yep.
And how much honey would you consider to be a successful harvest?
Those, and I do have a friend who he's got 9 of them, and he 900,000 choice. He makes a good amount of money from his 9 hives. So 100,000 would be. I'm doing the math in my head here, trying to figure it out. But we're looking at 7 kilos of honey, 18 pounds of honey from one harvest. Yeah, 18 pounds.
Okay.
So
that, honey here sells for, wholesale around $4, I think. Right? Yeah, around $4, and retail about twice that, a pound.
Yes.
So if it's even $10 a pound, that'd be $180, which is a lot of money in Uganda.
massive, massive. So if I were to hire someone to work for me for a day, it would be $2.50.
$2.50, yeah,
So
it gives you perspective.
That's what you expect. So if you multiply that by 30, you're looking at someone who's earning between $60 to $80 a month. And for a refugee gets $5 a month.
Oh,
$5, they have to live off of $5 a month.
Oh, wow.
So anything we can do that would give them some sort of opportunity like this,
Right, it's
would
huge.
huge.
Huge. Wow.
And you can keep a number of hives in a small space. Right. So again, land is a problem, but if you can keep your apiary in a small area, then you're making the most with the little you have.
So when they, just going back just to finish the smoker conversation, so
Yes.
they take a ball of grass
Yep.
and light it on fire
Yep.
and stick it in the hive,
Yeah.
like press it in with their hand in order to smoke the bees, or smoke the bees out. Does that, do the hives ever catch on fire?
Ooh.
Well, not really. You don't know.
I'm not seeing that. I mean, this is a mud hive. I mean, it's
Right.
mud covered, and
Okay.
so it
Maybe not so much.
catch on. The other thing that we're working on. Okay, best practice. How can we help to improve some of the practices so that they get more from their hives every year? And so we do think that one issue is they wait for the hive to be full of honey and just be full because they're going to harvest it one time. And so what we want to encourage is harvest more often.
Right.
And so we have no winter, so the bees never have to winterize. And
Okay.
there's always something on.
Really, as far as I was going to ask about foraging. There's always something to forage on.
Always something.
Okay.
And
that's
we're
amazing.
right by the Nile River, and so water is also there. So now the idea is and the bees are so defensive. Once that hive is full, boy, they come after you.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because as we were talking before we started recording this, you were telling me that the bees in Uganda are a lot more aggressive than the bees you've experienced here.
Oh my goodness, night and day.
And do you have?
Yeah.
People have protective gear like we do here, or?
No, you don't, and that's one reason I think why beekeeping hasn't taken off is because people don't like being stung.
Yeah.
And so it's just a niche for a few people who can handle it and are willing to put themselves through that.
Yeah.
So again, if we can help with gear, it'll open the door for a lot of people to get involved. Also, people are harvesting at night. Well, you know that bees are attracted to light. I mean, that's how they fly. And so if you're the one holding the torch or the light, they're coming right at you. And so again, just a few things that we think will really help. So we harvest during the day. We harvest 3 times a year so that the honey doesn't build up so much. These are just a few things that.
Interesting.
With suits, my son, he went out to harvest one time and he didn't tuck his pants into the boots that he was wearing, and the bees just swarmed right up his legs, lit him up.
Yeah.
And they're the kind that, like here, you'll get a bee that maybe buzzes you.
Right.
Walk away 10, 15 feet and you're fine. There, we go 300-400 feet, and the bee is still after me.
Still going after you.
I remember I ran into a wild colony, and I was by the Nile, and that colony chased me, and I I jumped into the water to get away from these bees.
Wow.
And they every time I came up, man, they would just hit me.
Wow.
And so I had a hat on.
That's hilarious.
So I put my hat above me and I would breathe in that little space until they went away, because they were gonna kill me. I mean, they were so aggressive.
Wow.
So you have to you have to be prepared for these bees. So.
And this purpose of this video is not fundraising, but I want to let you know that our local bee club here in South Carolina, that we bought some equipment and some people donated some bee suits. And I'm going to put a link to Eli's mission in the notes description down here. If you want to purchase something for him, you're more than welcome to. I know it'd be greatly appreciated. And Eli's a good man, and he's going to put it to good use there, so you can feel confident. You're not just sending it to some organization where you don't really know what happens to it or whatever. You're sending it to somebody who's just boots on the ground there. So it's just another opportunity that we have there. So.
Well, one of the interesting things that we're trying to figure out is people have brought Langstroth hives to Uganda.
Okay.
And you'll put a Langstroth out and you'll put a Kenya top bar hive out, and the bee every time chooses the top bar. And I don't know why.
Interesting.
I don't know why. And,
now,
whether they don't like building upwards or they're just used to, I don't know, the comb.
one factor that comes to mind off the top of my head is if there haven't been any Langstroth hives, and if there's no bee smell, and if you have a used top bar hive that has bee smell in it, the bees probably would choose that first. Yep. But are you saying that you put that same lemongrass in the Langstroth hive and they still don't go? So 2 new hives, they would still go to the top bar hives, yeah.
And we know, we do know, I know a set of beekeepers in Kenya, and they just talk about we can't figure it out, but why the production, they have gotten colonies to go into a Langstroth, but they don't produce. Whereas in the top bar, they're very prolific.
Interesting.
So why? I don't know. It's just interesting how here in the States, I just visit as many bee farms yards as I can, and it's all Langstroth. There's very few Kenya top bar, but which is fine because it works here. People are doing that. The other difference we have is treatment. Like as far as I've never heard of any sort of foul brood. I've never seen it or never heard of it. I've never heard of anyone treating for mites. I know they exist because in the research it exists, but in my own hives and other hives, I've never heard of anybody having an issue with sudden colony collapse. Yeah. I've never seen that.
Wow.
Like I've never gone to a set of hives and seen dead bees.
So you're going to make a lot of people jealous, especially in regard to the mites. Like mites in America are just becoming a huge problem. Like 80% of colony collapses are attributed in some way to mites in America. So it's like a huge factor. If we were able to fix that one problem, beekeeping would become 20 times more simple. So to live in an environment where mites are not as much of an issue is just like completely foreign speak to an American beekeeper.
It is, and when I see bees here in America, they're much bigger.
Oh,
our bees are small.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's small and maybe more. There's a lot more of them, 8 per colony, and they're just again more protective.
Yeah.
So when you will pass by a colony and they'll let you know it.
Wow.
You don't even. You're not opening it. You're not just walking by, and they will let you know.
Oh, that is incredible.
So,
yeah. And just going back to the thought on the top bar, on how they choose the top bar hive, I know all of the natural beekeepers are going to chime in. I told you so. The top bar is better. The top bar is better. And there are some advantages, and a lot of people do think that it's a more natural way of beekeeping. And I keep both Langstroth and top bars. And for a while, my dad, who had mentored me in beekeeping, had done Langstroth his whole life, and he's just switching over to top bar hives because he read some books on it and was pretty fascinated by it. And I do find that there are some advantages as far as the way the bees work inside of a top bar and be able to create their own comb. Naturally, they do seem to respond to that better than forcing them onto our plastic frames, etc. But anyway, I know that some people are going to chime in and say, "Yeah, I told you so." But it's the disadvantages are are there too, especially when it comes to, at least from an American perspective. But you see, listening to you talk, I just realized, how much of an American beekeeper I am, right? Because from my perspective, like taking all of the comb out of the hive, or crushing all of the comb in a top bar hive, is setting the hive back like a whole year, because like drawn out comb is like second in value to the honey itself here in America.
Right.
Having drawn out comb sometimes takes a beekeeper 1 or 2 years to get enough of their comb drawn out. And so when you talk about crushing all of that, but you don't have seasons. So like we have a short season. It's only 10 weeks of nectar flow here in the southeast. And then there's little nectar flows here and there. So you don't have to worry about the overwintering. So I guess it's constantly regenerating. But from my perspective, I'm like, going that comb, that would just like set my bees back. And if the nectar flows over, I'm going to have to feed them sugar water in order to get them to build all that comb back out. And that's going to cost a lot of money, which makes the price of honey go up. And it's just like, I just think like that. So it's very fascinating to hear, your perspective from a different part of the world, to where, the bees are more aggressive, but you also can just like, you can clean out a hive and they'll move right back in and start building it right back up, and it doesn't really set them back, and you don't have to worry about them like dying over the winter, because that's like always the mentality. We got to build them up, we got to build the hives, we got to keep them mite free, we've got to make sure they have enough honey left on for the winter. You don't have to worry about any of that.
Right.
Fascinating.
A lot of respect for you American beekeepers. So intentional. So intentional. And it's why actually we've chosen this for our students, because often our students are called off to go in ministry, or they have to go to a funeral, and our funerals take a week, or our weddings take 2 weeks. And so they might be gone from home. And so being able to leave their whatever's at home to live, chickens would die, our pigs would die, all the projects I had tried would die. But bees, they take care of themselves. And so I know it's a lot more intentional here, but that's why we've chosen beekeeping in Uganda.
Nice.
To work. So
wonderful.
Anyway.
Eli, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was a great interview.
Yeah.
That was fun. So very
pleasure.
good. Appreciate it.
Yeah.